Hi everybody, I'm Zilla Blitz, and welcome to the final episode in our Bulge Off 23/24, where we've taken the top 20 tabletop Battle of the Bulge Wargames and narrowed them down single elimination, March Madness style, to one champion. And today is the day we've been waiting for. We're crowning our champion. We'll also give the results of our Bronze Star matchup, which was the matchup between the runners-up in the semifinals. So we've got two games to take a look at. Interesting results, although I will say a little bit anticlimactic over our semifinal round. Before we, however, go into that, I do want to mention that this video is sponsored by our channel sponsor, Noble Knight Games. As I was putting together a lot of the games for this competition, a lot of them are out of print and somewhat hard to find. While I could find some of them on eBay, sometimes it's really hard to tell what you're going to get on eBay with a used game when someone says that the counters are all complete and things like that. And one of the things I've liked about getting games from used games, in particular from Noble Knight Games, is that every time I've gotten one, it's been at that stated level or better. And you know if there's ever any issue with it, they're going to make it right. So I've been really happy with the service I've received from Noble Knight Games, and they were particularly pivotal in putting together 4 of the games for this collection. So thanks to Noble Knight for sponsoring our channel, and all of the games are linked down below. So if you are looking for any of the games in this competition, those links might be a good place to start. But now it is time. Let's dig into our final results. So we're going to, of course, start with the Bronze Star matchup, which is Ardennes 2 from Multi-Man Publishing against Enemy Actions Ardennes from Compass Games. This one was it was kind of a rout. There's really no other way to put this, as Enemy Action Ardennes racked up 69% of the 370 votes, and Ardennes 2 picks up 31% of the votes. The Bronze Star third place medal goes to Enemy Action Ardennes. Now, I have another story to tell about Enemy Action Ardennes, because if you watched the episode before this, you know that with something like close to 400 votes, Enemy Action Ardennes and Ardennes 44 in their semifinal matchup were just the slimmest margins apart. And as I looked at them over the course of the week, they kind of were going back and forth. In the end, when I had to tally the votes, it was clear that Ardennes 44 had edged out Enemy Action Ardennes by anywhere from 1 to 5 votes, because you can't really tell the exact number on a YouTube poll. Well, I can't close YouTube polls. I could delete it, but I don't want to delete it. So I had to leave them open. And what I've noticed is I've gone back a number of times now and I've looked at that matchup, because now it's up over 400 votes. And I think 2 of the 3 times I've gone back and looked at the results of that semifinal match, Enemy Action Ardennes has actually been leading over Ardennes 44, and that happens to be the case right now. If we look at the results from 402 votes, we can see that 50%, 50%, but the line, that bar graph for Enemy Action Ardennes, is slightly longer than that of of Ardennes 44, which means that Enemy Action Ardennes, now, if we ended the results today, it would have gone on to the final. So, point made is that I think all of these games are fine games, but in particular, Enemy Action Ardennes as a Bronze Star winner could have easily, had history and the fates been just a little bit different, could have been the champion of the entire tournament. But now, this is it. The final moment we've all been waiting for. Now, by the way, I had hoped to get this out on January 28th, but Patton's tanks kind of ran out of gas a little bit, so we're delayed by about a week, getting here in the early part of February. I wanted to end it on January 28th because that's the historical end of the Battle of the Bulge, but we're just a little bit late for this. Sorry for the delay, and thanks for your patience with this. But we did finally make it. We started with 20 games, and now we're down to 1. Ardennes 44 from GMT Games goes up against the last Blitzkrieg from Multi-Man Publishing. Both of these games have solid ratings of over 8 on Boardgame Geek, and they come slamming into each other in the final round. How did it go? Well, Ardennes 44 got the most votes in every single round it participated in up to the final round. And that didn't stop here for the final round, as it garnered 64% of the 444 people who voted for this in this competition, and convincingly picks up the victory over the last Blitzkrieg, which had 36% of the vote. So congratulations to Ardennes 44 for winning the Medal of Honor award and becoming the king of all the Bulge games in this competition. Congratulations as well to the last Blitzkrieg, who will earn the Silver Star award for second place in the competition. One does wonder, however, had I checked those poll results just a couple days later, could it be Enemy Action Ardennes sitting in this championship spot because, again, it was such a razor-tight match between those two games. History will never tell us. This is the historical result, and we'll only be able to look back and speculate on what might have been. Had just a little bit of a couple of days later, a couple of days earlier, who knows what the final results could be here. But I think that's kind of one of the things that makes these fun again. And the idea, what I stated back in the beginning, just to reiterate at the end here to be perfectly clear, this really is a competition for fun. It's not to really make definitive statements about any and all of these games. There's a lot of factors, of course, which people have talked about in the comments as to why people might pick one game over another game. And it's really hard to tell what people are thinking there. I think we can say, however, that the games that made it here to the last four, and I would also like to say, I would say the games that are in the competition in and of itself. I mean, I really tried to whittle down the field to what I thought were kind of the 20 most representative and definitive games about the Battle of the Bulge that have been made for the tabletop. I think you can't go wrong with any of the games that were in this competition. And it's a shame we have to end up with one, of course, but I think we really started out with 20 fantastic games, and there's a ton of fun to be had from any one of these games in the competition. So there you have it. I thought I would wrap up now a little bit with just some kind of reflections on some of the things that I observed and some of the things that I think this competition kind of brought out. And then also just a minute or two about where I think this type of video series might go on the channel. So first up, there's been a lot of comments and a lot of conversation in the comments about Board Game Geek ratings. And those are the ratings that I kind of use to seed the field. That's why I kind of wanted to have the last Blitzkrieg, which had a Board Game Geek rating of over 8 in kind of a corner of the bracket. Ardennes 44, and then Enemy Action Ardennes. All of these three games when their tournament started had Board Game Geek ratings over 8. And I wanted to put them in corners so they could converge. If the ratings turned out to be indicative, they could converge on the semifinals and finals, and then we would go from there. So I didn't want like an Enemy Action Ardennes to go up against the last Blitzkrieg in the first round. That would have been a little bit odd to put them there. So they were roughly seeded that way. There was, in that one game, which was really interesting here too, is that Ardennes 2, which made it to the semifinals, didn't have enough ratings on Board Game Geek to get an official rating when we started the tournament. But over the course of the past month and a half, it's finally accumulated enough people rating for it that it did actually get a Board Game Geek rating. And lo and behold, its rating is well over 8. It's up in the 8.2 and 8.3 range. So for people that might say Board Game Geek ratings don't matter, 4 games in the tournament have Board Game Geek ratings over 8, and all 4 of them made it to the semifinals and finals. So I think we can say that there is a little bit of truth, at least, or some truth, or a good bit of truth to Board Game Geek ratings with regards to wargames. Now, I think there's the flip side of that, right? Because some of the games that had lower ratings, some of the older games in particular that had lower ratings, actually did really, really well in the early stages of the tournament until they ran up against the juggernauts that were really the semifinalists and the finalists. So I think while it might be say that a high Board Game Geek rating is indicative of a quality game based on this, a lower Board Game Geek rating is not indicative of a weaker game. It could be a really good game, especially if perhaps it's an older game that you're looking at. Now, again, we're speculating. We need a lot more data, right? We need to figure out kind of what goes into Board Game Geek ratings, how people are doing, what kind of people. There's so much that we're kind of speculating on that we don't really have good data analysis for this, but I did think those trends with Board Game Geek ratings were interesting. Second observation was all 4 games that made it to the semifinals and the finals are games from big publishers, right? And we had some amazing games from smaller publishers that got knocked out really early. And I do think that one of the things that became apparent in this is that to a certain degree, a better known game, a game that's had more copies printed, is going to survive and last longer in a tournament like this, simply because more people have played it than other games that are in the tournament too. So there is a certain amount of production, of marketing, of popularity, and well-known aspects of games like this that help make it to the finals and things like that. Having said that, there are a lot of games from the bigger publishers that did get knocked out earlier than that. So there is that kind of blend, I think, of both quality and popularity that kind of merged as we got to the end of the tournament there. The last thing I would like to talk just a little bit about, a bunch of people have mentioned in comments down below, not necessarily about Bulge Off, but about how much they've enjoyed it or the fact that they've liked this Bulge Off tournament. And could you do a tournament about like Gettysburg games? Or could you do a tournament about D-Day or Barbarossa and things like that, or the Eastern Front? Absolutely. This was very much from my idea. It was really very much a test run. I wanted to see if people enjoyed it, to see if people liked it. I feel this format this type of format can really be expanded on and taken in not just the same exact way we did it with like 20 games or 16 games and kind of crunching them down to one game. I think we could start even with a field of 4 and then do playthroughs for all 4 and then kind of, so people could see actually the games in action and not have to try to decide about the games just based on whether they played them or not, which is really kind of, it doesn't give you much information to go on if you haven't played the games. So we could do one with like 4 games, do playthroughs of all 4 games, and people say, which playthrough did you think was the most exciting and created the most dynamic gameplay? So I think there's a ton of things. We could do comparisons across smaller fields, bigger fields. We could do World War I, we could do Vietnam War, there's solitaire games that you can play in 2 hours. I think the potential for doing things like this video series is really large, and I would definitely like definite strong intentions to come back and revisit this format in some way, shape, manner, or form. Especially, I would like to keep up the idea of audience participation. That's what made this really, really fun for me. So I would like to end on this to say a huge thank you to everybody who commented, liked, who may have subscribed to this series because of this, and then kind of shared and voted for the games as they were going forward. It was really fascinating for me to read all the comments and to kind of see this. It was very much more, usually I make a video and I publish it, right? And then people give comments and stuff like that. But this was really much audience participating. You were driving the competition. So thank you to everybody who took the energy and time to offer up their thoughts and then vote for all the games. This was just as much fun for me as it was for, I hope, the people that really like the series out there. And with that, it is time for us to wrap up Bulge 2023-24. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I'd be curious to hear down below what you thought of the tournament, what you thought of the results, and then ideas for other tournaments like this as well down in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day.